For 15 years, I've section hiked the Appalachian Trail, knowing that I could never through hike because I could never eat the food required to do a through hike. We have put together a kit with 3 pieces here: a skillet, a stove, and a handle. And the handle works with the skillet. When it's hot, the handle weighs 20 grams thereabouts, and allows you to pick up the skillet once it's hot and move it around. It's pretty steady. I'll do an example of lunch. We have a bagel, cheese, a package of Spam, and butter. And those items total up to 830 calories, and it just takes a short time here to prepare it. You set the flame. It's hard to see here, but we do have the flame going, and it's a very low, soft flame that will melt the butter. And set the pot on there, melt the butter, put a bagel half down in the butter, and let that melt. The butter is melting, and we'll try to soak up all that butter in that bagel half. Our second half of bagels has pretty much absorbed the butter, and the first one is staying warm and ready. After browning our bagel halves, we take a 1/4 cup of cheese and pour it directly into the skillet. Burner set so that it won't burn anything. Take a half a bagel and set it right on top of there. We've turned over the bagel. It's getting hot on top, and there's still a little cheese in the skillet. Let that get hot. Add the other half of bagel. Now we have 800 calories. Another item that is easily prepared is Pop-Tart. You think, well, that's no big deal, just open the package. But when you take 100 calories of butter and add it to a Pop-Tart, so you have the back here of the Pop-Tart, and the butter is simmering there and melting. We just put that in there and let it set while you're doing something else. This has been simmering here for a couple minutes. Notice the butter hadn't browned. It's fully just absorbing into the Pop-Tart. The butter is browning in the skillet. Most of it's absorbed. I'll take the Pop-Tart off. And flip it over. And drain all that butter into the Pop-Tart and let it cool here a minute. It's like I browned it a little more than I intended, but I turned the heat up. I was in the 100-mile wilderness a few years ago, and it was raining hard, and we stopped to take a break in a shelter, and there were probably 10, 15 other people there. And I knew better than to fix what I was going to fix, but it's all I had. And so I fixed sausage gravy and cooked sausage. These are frozen, fully cooked sausage, vacuum bagged, and they'll last several days. Or I've had them for several days, but they'll probably last for weeks. Non-refrigerated. And I'm gonna make sausage gravy. This is 50 calories per 10 grams. So we've got 28 grams an ounce. So there's over 50 calories or over 100 calories per ounce. The 4 sausages here are like 500 calories, I think, a little over, and 100 calories of butter. And let's see what we come up with. So I have turned at the stove. It's on low. You can turn it up and get the water boiling. It doesn't take long. Added an equal amount of sausage gravy to the equal amount of water and the butter. And pretty quickly it starts boiling. Add the 4 sausage to it and turn the heat down to where it's just simmering. Let it sit there a couple minutes till the sausage get hot. And it's better than freeze dried. But you let the flour in the mix there cook. It takes just a little time, but it doesn't take very long. Put the sausage in. Once it comes back to a boil, then the sausage is surely hot. And enjoy. Another low-cost item is this Martha White banana nut bread. It's $1.12, I think. There's 3 servings per pack and 300 calories per serving. You add 100 calories or a little more, maybe butter and some water, and let's cook it up. The water's starting to steam a little bit, and we'll just pour the mix directly into the warm water and scramble it up and watch it come together. Just poured it in there and wet it, and let's see what happens. May have to add a little more if I've got too much water or whatever, but it looks like it's coming together. We've turned it here a few times, and it's cooking up nicely, and we need to set it aside to cool and make a cup of coffee, and we'll be ready to hit the trail. I have cooked this different ways, and I'll show you here. One is to make a biscuit kind of thing out of it, and it'll be a little doughy in the center. If you don't like the doughiness, just break it up into, scramble it, and you can cook it up to where it's tasty either way. About everything we cook starts out with butter, and we've got butter in the skillet here, and a tortilla, and some salami and cheddar cheese. So we take the butter and then put the tortilla in and heat it up. Gets softened up and wet it with butter. We have cheese and salami, and then set aside here we have the tortilla. And we're gonna dump that off in here and fold it into a sandwich just here in a minute. We fold it up and fold the corners in and let it brown. You've got a hot town food kind of meal. Doesn't take long, just a couple minutes here. Now there's my tortilla lunch, and the skillet's pretty well cleaned out. Ramen noodles are a staple on the trail. I've got some things that I do a little differently, and let's let's look at this, and I'll show you some other things as well. But they've got about a cup of water, and that may not be enough to cover the noodles, but it's been on, heat's been on maybe a minute, but it's turned down kind of low. I'll just put them in there and let them simmer. The water's boiling and it's not hardly covering the noodles, so we'll add a little bit of water to it, just enough to get everything underwater. That's good. It didn't need, maybe it didn't need that, but we'll let these cook here. That's above a simmer for a little bit. And the object is to absorb all the water. I've now added 2 tablespoons of butter. I don't think that's enough for what I'm attempting to do here, but we'll see. I have added 300 calories or 3 tablespoons of butter, and it's looking good here. I'm gonna add brown sugar. Next, I've added 300 calories or 3 tablespoons of butter, and now I've added brown sugar. And may need a little more brown sugar, but we'll test this. I've done this a few times. We now have 300 calories of butter, and we've added brown sugar to taste, a couple tablespoons of brown sugar. So we've got 370 calories of ramen noodles, 300 calories of butter, and you can see here it's very little extra liquid in the bowl. And we'll try this out. Something I've learned is you don't make grilled cheese sandwiches if you don't want to attract attention. But if you do make grilled cheese sandwiches, there is something technique that I think helps, and I'll demonstrate that. Once your butter is melted, kind of dip your bread in the butter and set it aside. Need to pretty much absorb all the butter into the bread, and a little more butter in here. And then put the cheese directly into the skillet. Cheese is melted and most of it stuck to this piece of bread. And we'll just sop that up, set it aside, and put the other piece of bread in there to get the rest of the cheese. And then we'll put it together as a sandwich and brown it. Rotate this piece of bread until all the cheese in the skillet's pretty much wiped up. The bread, not too hot to touch, but you don't want to touch the skillet. And take this piece of bread and put it on top of the other one. Put it back in the skillet and brown it a little bit. Heat up the whole sandwich, but cheese is well melted now. And that's grilled cheese. Turn the heat up a little bit and let the bread brown. This is sourdough bread from the grocery, and it doesn't compress like plain white bread. It'll hold up in your pack much better than just ordinary bread. And there it is. very quick hot breakfast is Jiffy Mix, muffin mix, made into cornmeal porridge. Just takes a few minutes and it's a good hot breakfast. All the flavors that you might add to a cornmeal porridge, like sugar and vanilla, is all encompassed in this Jiffy Mix. The box costs 50 cents and there's three pretty good servings in there. So, and there's 1,000 calories in this box, plus butter. I've added the Jiffy Mix to the cold water and I'll just mix it up here. I have it somewhat mixed and I'm going to turn the heat on. You can see it's coming together here, and it doesn't take but a few minutes. And you know, it may need a little more water. I just pour water in there. And as you can see here, the skillet, the handle, and the stove that we have put together weighs 13 ounces and is all we use to cook our meals on the trail.